right. Hey guys, Mr. Kyle, Myers Mathematics, and let's just jump into it. This is graphing lines. Again, this is another worksheet. The one that I did last week was on how to sketch the graph of a line, meaning like, just graph it, put it on the graph. If it's in what's called slope-intercept form. Okay, so slope-intercept form was slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. And when it's in that form, it's really helpful because the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. So you just graph the y-intercept, and then you use the slope to graph another point, and then you connect the dots, and now you have a line. When it's in this form, when it's in standard form, so standard form, standard is the most useless out of the three. There's another one called general form, but nobody really ever uses that. So there's slope-intercept form, there's standard form, and then there's another one called point-slope form, which is also a very useful, probably the most useful of the three. The standard form is the least useful out of the three. It's ax plus by equals c. And that's the form that a lot of these are going to be in, except for maybe like number 3, but it's like kind of technically in standard form. It just doesn't have an x, so yeah, so standard form. What we're going to do is for the odd numbers, we're going to use one method to graph. And then for the even numbers, we're going to use a different method. Both methods I like. Both methods are good and useful. And you can decide for yourself which one you like better. So the first one, so for odds, and we'll just use 2 different colors here for these. We'll use let's do green for the odds. So for odds, we're going to do a method called the Coverup method. Coverup method. The Coverup method. So the way you do this is you cover up either the x or the y. So what you're doing is you're finding the x and y intercepts. Okay, so we want to cover up the x stuff. Okay, cover up the x stuff. Step 2, solve for y. Solve for y. Okay, so let's do that first. Cover up the x. Step 1. Step 2, solve for y. Y is 5. Okay, well, now we want to graph that, right? So we graph that point. Graph that, and this is a y-intercept point. Okay, so then we would go up 5 points, up five spaces here. And there it is. Okay, and then we just do the same exact thing for the other one, right? So if we want to solve for y, so let's erase what we did here. And then we just do the same exact thing. Repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 for the opposite variables. Okay, so really it's like 6 steps altogether. Oh, and then a 7th step because you have to actually, like graph the line because that's what they want. Now this one is not going to be as nice as some of the other ones because we're going to get a fraction. So this method, maybe not the best one. Maybe, I don't know, it just depends on what they give you. But the other method, maybe I do like the other method better. I don't know. Maybe you can decide for yourself which one you like better. Why don't you let me know once you get an idea of method 1 versus method 2 here, the odd method versus the even method. Let me know in the comments which one you like better. So I think the verdict is still out here. Let's do the opposite. So the opposite of step 1, cover up x stuff, would be to cover up the y stuff. Okay. Step 2, solve for x, right? So divide by 7. This is why I don't like this one as much, because 5/7, where's that? Right? 5/7. Okay, and then 3, graph that point. So 5/7 is like right here. It's like right there. Okay, so then that's there. Now, if it's 5/7 and it's like this is 5 spaces away from here, then we would go another 2 spaces down to get to here. But this is a little bit more confusing to do it this way, I think, for this one. So maybe what I'll do is instead of doing odds and evens, when it looks like it's helpful to do this method, I'll do this method, and then if not, we'll do the other method. So how about we just do that? Because this method is just a little bit messy for this problem. But once we've done it, we've graphed it, and we've got our line. Okay, so we'll still use green when we're using that method, and then we'll use a different color for the other method. So let's use purple. Let's go with purple. Okay, so the other method. The other method, I'm going to have to set this up for you a little bit, but there's a little formula you can use, actually. And here's what it looks like. Okay, so actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and just start with AX. So when it's in standard form, it's like this. And then if we were to solve for y, and put it in slope-intercept form, I'd have to subtract the x stuff from both sides. Bear with me here. This is a little gnarly because I'm doing what's called a literal equation or a multivariable equation here, but I would do this and then get y equal to mx plus b. So if you take standard form and then you solve it for y to get it into slope-intercept form, you get the slope. So the slope is going to be negative a over b, and then the y-intercept is going to be c divided by b. Okay, so we just need to identify a, b, and c. So really the steps for this are identify a, b, and c. Step 2, we want to plot the y-intercept, right? So plot c over b. Okay, and then step 3, you're going to use the slope. Use slope, which is going to be negative a over b, to plot another point. Okay, so this is less steps than the Coverup method. However, you have to use formulas, which means that it's, more stuff to remember. So if you are good at remembering formulas, or if you're allowed to use a formula sheet, then this would be really good for you. Or if you do something called brain dumping. I've got another video on how to do brain dumping. I'll see if I can post that in the link in the description below, and I'll also maybe recommend that as the video at the end of this. But brain dumping is when you remember formulas right before the test starts, and then when the test starts, you don't have them like fully memorized, but you've remembered them. Like when somebody's like, "Hey, can you remember this number? 1, 2, 6, 4, 7." And then they're like, "What was that number again?" And you're like, "Oh, 1, 2, 6, 4, 7." Right? That's called working memory. So if you store these formulas in your working memory, then you start on the test and you need to remember those formulas. Well, if you remember the formulas just before the test, then you just write them on the test as soon as you get the test, and then there you go. It's called brain dumping. So you might be able to do that with this, or if you're good at remembering formulas, then this could work out pretty well. So this is the other method, and we're going to use this to solve number 2 here. The y-intercept is c over b. C is negative 5, so it's negative 5 over b, which is 5. So negative 1. Okay. So c over b, that's the y-intercept. The y-intercept is negative 1. Then we do negative a over b. Negative a, so negative 3. All right, so this is the y-intercept. And then the slope is going to be negative a over b. Negative 3/5. So I'm going to go down 3, right? Rise over run. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right like that. Okay? And that's the formulas that we're going to use. We're going to use c over b and negative a over b for the y-intercept and the slope, and then you basically just graph it like how you would graph it when it's in slope-intercept form. Okay, so number three. Number three, we can actually kind of do the Coverup method on, sort of, because there's no x stuff to cover up. Y is equal to 4 would be right here, right? So there's no x stuff to cover up, right? So when you cover up the x stuff, it's like, oh, that's already done for you, kind of, because there is no x stuff. So solve for y is 4, graph that y-intercept point. So y equals 4, that's a y-intercept of 4. And then step 4, repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 for the opposite variables. So we can't cover up the y stuff because there would be nothing left over, which means there's no x-intercept. So it's a little tricky still to do this method, but it works. The other thing you can remember is if it's y equals a number is a horizontal line. Horizontal line. And if it's x equals a number, that's a vertical line. Okay? If you can just remember that, then that'll help you out a lot there. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is not going to work out well if we try to do a cover-up method, so we're going to use the other method. We're going to do C over B. Okay, C, let's identify A, B, and C. Let's do step 1 first. So identify A, B, and C. A is 6, B is 5, C is 20. Okay, so we need C over B, C over B, and that's going to be 4. Okay, so the y-intercept is 4. And then we want negative A over B. So negative 6/5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And draw a line through it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but there it is. Okay. Number 5. So again, this is what we were talking about earlier with this whole, x and y thing. Y equals is horizontal. X equals is a vertical line. So we need a vertical line that goes through the x value of negative 3, which is right here. And there we go. Okay, number 6. This is actually a really good one for cover-up method. So let's go ahead and do step 1. Step 1 is to cover up the x stuff. Step 2, solve for y. Y is equal to 4. It's right there. Okay. And then we plot it. And then step 4, cover up the y stuff. Solve for x. Right, divide by 2, divide by 2. X is going to equal to 2, which is right here. And then we graph it. So the reason why I knew this was going to work out is because if both a and b, so the numbers in front of x and y, if both of those can be divided by c, right? 4 is going to divide by 1 and 4 divides by 2. That's how you know that the cover-up method is going to work out really well. Okay. Otherwise, the formula method is going to win out. So actually, we can use the cover-up method again here. If we cover up the x stuff, y is 3. Okay. And then we cover up the y stuff. X is also 3. So it looks like this. Boom, there we go. All right, on this one, 15 over 10, that doesn't go in evenly. It simplifies a little bit, but it does not go in evenly, so we don't want to use the cover-up method. Let's use the other method. So we want to identify A, B, and C. A is 10. B is negative 3. Don't forget the sign in front. And then C is 15. Okay, so we want to do C over B, which is 15 over negative 3, which is negative 5. Okay, so the y-intercept is negative 5. And then we want to do negative A over B. Negative A, so negative 10. And then B is negative 3. And that's 10 thirds. Okay, so we're going to have to rise 10. We're going to have to rise 10 and run 3. Give me a second because I forgot to turn my phone on airplane mode. Airplane mode. Okay, so 10 over 3. 5, 10, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, that's a steep slope. Okay, and there we go. All right, number 9, we can use the cover-up method on this. We can use the cover-up method on this one. So we cover up the x stuff first. If we solve for y, y is actually going to be equal to negative 3 because negative y is equal to 3 right now. So y is going to be equal to negative 3. Okay. And then cover up the y stuff. X is 3. And there we go. Boom, boom. All right, y equals 0. Remember, if it's y equals, that's a horizontal line. And it's going to be a horizontal line at 0. Right? So the x-axis, the x-axis, the x, well, let me go back. There we go. The x-axis is y equals 0. So if the x-axis is y equals 0, that means the y-axis is x equals 0. Right? Seems a little backwards, maybe. But the x-axis is where y is stuck at 0. X goes to the left and to the right freely. Y is stuck at 0. And then the opposite is true for the y-axis. Okay, we can do cover-up method again here. And you can kind of maybe imagine if we cover these up, right? So I've been like literally covering them up and then erasing it, which you can do. But you can also just kind of imagine them covered up sometimes when it's like this. If we cover up the x, y is equal to negative 3. And if we cover up the y, x is also equal to negative 3. And there we go. And we get the same thing for number 12 here. If we cover up either x or y, they're going to be equal to negative 1. And there we go. And that's it. Wow, that was a short worksheet. Look at that. Okay, so we have our answers here. And you can see for number 1, it did end up being right here. It did end up being right there. But right here, see, that's where it intersects the x-axis. So it's actually not a really good method to try to do the cover-up method on that one. We could do the other method on it if we wanted and solve it that way and get the right answer that way. So if we use the other method real quick, what we would do is we would just say that A, B, and C are 7, 1, and 5. So the y-intercept is going to be 5 over 1, so 5. And then the slope is going to be negative 7 over 1. So negative 7 is a slope of negative 7 over 1. So that's why we had to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then over 1 to get to that point right there. Okay. So cover-up method is easier than remembering the formula for this. Otherwise, you'd have to solve it and get it into y-intercept, slope-intercept form every single time. If you don't use the equation, you'd have to solve it for slope-intercept form every time in order to graph it. Cover-up method works really well as long as this number, the C number, divides by the others. If it doesn't, then you probably don't want to use that method. Okay? So that's it, and I hope this has been helpful. If it's been super helpful, I actually have something else that's super helpful. It's called the 5 math mistakes everyone makes and how to avoid them. It's a free guide that I made just for you, and it's on my website, myersmathematics.com. Link in the description below. If you need tutoring, I am also a tutor. That's actually what I do mainly as of right now in 2021, October. If you would like a free tutoring session, just email me. My email is in the description below as well, and I hope you have a blessed day.